Yeah, welcome back to DXB today, where we are looking not just at future cities, but the future of this city and what it might look like in the years to come. Well, our next guest is creating fun but serious workshops on climate change. In just 3 hours, participants collaborate to understand the causes and the consequences of climate change. Please welcome Charlene Nawar, the country coordinator of Climate Fresk UAE. Thanks so much indeed for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Kind of you to come on in. And I suppose therein lies the challenge, because as much as, you know, all of us want to have that conversation about climate change, and all of us adults are able to have that conversation about climate change, how do you enthrall younger generations, but equally older generations as well? How do you make the science of climate change and all the goals that the UN have put out, etc., more applicable to us? What's your approach?
That's a great question. That's one of our biggest challenges, and I think we've achieved it in a really fun and collaborative way. We have, so firstly, I think it's important to mention that Climate Fresk is a workshop. And the purpose of the workshop is to understand the causes and consequences of climate change, ultimately to trigger action, to create change. All the facts, all the information that's on the cards is taken from the IPCC reports. The IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change created by the United Nations. So that really helps the conversation, the dialogue, so that it's not so much. Climate change is a very complex topic. There's a lot of people that disagree. So we've kind of made it fun and collaborative and very much science-based so that people can understand and can learn what's at stake.
So how engaged is the UAE Climate Fresk with the global Climate Fresk community? And what contribution do you particularly see coming out of the UAE youth?
Climate Fresk is originally an NGO based in France, and they created an international deployment, so they are now pretty much worldwide. Here in the UAE, we've been working at workshops for probably the last 3 to 4 years. We've managed to currently fresk 10,000 people. Our goal is ultimately to fresk 10 million, so we have a very long way to go. Yeah.
So the UAE has set very ambitious goals, 2050 net zero, and I'm sure a lot of these workshops are helping people figure out how to get there, because we, I think, register a lot of the information, but we don't know how to implement it. So what's some of the advice and tools that you give your participants?
Okay, so I guess to help you understand that, I'll go through the structure of the workshop.
Okay.
And the fact that we play it through cards. So it's a card game, ultimately, based on 42 cards that people have to arrange in order of cause and consequence. There is a facilitator that's not there to give a lecture on climate change. It's more to help the participants who are going to communicate amongst themselves, figure out what causes what. And it's quite an interesting way, because some people have a lot of knowledge, some people don't have a lot of knowledge, and together they have to agree on a format, I guess, to say that this causes that, and so on and so on. And through this, they will be able to understand what's at stake. And I think when you understand what's at stake, it triggers a lot of emotions. So that's the first part of the workshop, is we kind of sit a little bit on the emotional part, because some people are sad, some people feel disgusted, surprised. There's a lot of different emotions that come out of that. And I think eco-anxiety is something that we're seeing a lot of, which was, you know, something that seemed a distant emotion that people would feel, but we see it being a lot more common now. And these emotions are incredibly useful because, firstly, they're natural, and people use these emotions to want to create change. Once we go through the emotion part, we then focus on a quiz based on general data, statistical data based on the UAE, a lot of information from the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, to help people to understand, you know, how our day-to-day activities, or how, you know, the activities that we perform in our professional capacity at work, well, what are the consequences of these activities? And then we spend the last part of the workshop actually discussing change. And this depends on whether we're doing it for schools or universities, or whether we're doing this for companies or government. When we discuss that change, we kind of work together with the participants to to understand what they can do in their personal or professional capacity in their role to create this change.
So if I've come to one of your workshops, how do your workshops then empower action post-workshop? Like, how do people integrate that sustainability awareness into their businesses or their personal lives, etc.?
That's a really interesting point. So in order to create that change, we try to ensure that we collect all of the information that's shared, and we share it with the company or the individuals to hope that they will then inspire that change internally. However, one of the ways that we allow this progression of Climate Fresk and this building of understanding and awareness is to train facilitators. So a lot of the time, general public or schools, teachers, universities, business professionals, they will become a Climate Fresk facilitator so that that workshop doesn't just happen once and then it's forgotten about. They can continue to build capacity and actually train and run workshops, should I say, for other participants so that they can continue talking about climate change and what's at stake.
Well, it interests me because it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of from the gamification process, but equally making it more open to understanding, etc. It's a tool that can be used from highest government down into schools, to universities, to organisations the world over. And I suppose that therein lies the challenge, to come up with a platform, to come up with a tool that is open and accessible to all.
Exactly. And so I would say the youngest age that we do this from is 10 years old.
Wow.
Because we have a different version. We have a junior version of the cards. It's done in 2 hours, not 3 hours, so that we can accommodate the youth as well. And then from there on, from around 14 plus, we're looking at a simplified adult version. And then from there onwards, honestly, sometimes we do the full adult version, but it just depends on the audience and their knowledge and capacity to understand.
Yeah.
So we've been able to create the game to be able to appeal for many, many different audiences.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Amazing. Well, Charlene, thank you so much for joining us and giving us incredible insight on Climate Fresk. Thank you so much.